G'day guys, welcome back to Bushka on Blitz. I'll be your host for tonight's festivities. This is a video that took a little bit of a turn. After some discussion on the forum where people were requesting info about side scraping and the like, I said I would do a video on it. Grand Plans is going to run a video, do reverse side scraping in the IS-3, side scraping in the German tanks and the IS-6, and anyway, long story short, it was taking for bloody ever. And even worse, I was finding that for the most part, I wasn't side scraping when I was having my best games. I was doing a little bit of that. I was also doing a little bit of terrain abuse, a little bit of everything really, but what I was doing the most was reverse angling, which is something you do when you side scrape, but you also do it when you're just in the open with your tank, and you want to maximize the opportunity to make the enemy miss. I was juking a lot, all these different styles and modes of play. Now, for a lot of people, these are second nature. And for heaven's sake, I mean, there's certainly much better tankers out there than me. If you want to watch and learn about side scraping, please go to 48 Ton Ruckus's channel and check out his recent KV4 video. You will not get a better, more in-depth explanation of the basic methodology of side scraping than that. And mate, and the guy's a genius. He's a second-rated player, but you're here anyway, so I'll show you a little bit of what I can do. Now, what I've done is put together not really a show reel, but a bunch of different videos to highlight some of the things that I use to maximize survivability in the game. Juking, for instance, and I've also changed it up a little bit. I've put some picture-in-picture in the video where you can actually see the armor model of the enemy, of your tank, versus the exact gun the enemy is using. And as such, you get a more visual understanding of what I'm talking about. And it's certainly, I'm a visual learner, and a lot of people are, and it's certainly more helpful in understanding what's going on in the game when you can see it from the enemy's perspective, and you can see the big green hit zones that they're seeing and the big red hit zones which they're seeing where they can't actually penetrate your armor. Anyway, it will become apparent as we move forward. It's not a very long video. It's not a convoluted video. It's only about 4 or 5 situations. I'm using the simplest tanks I find to illustrate these points, and that's the German tanks, the E100, and in the main part, the E75. They've got very, very good armor for side scraping. They're relatively mobile for a good side scraper, i.e. the KV4s have got a horrific rate of turn and such. And they're, big, strong tanks. And as such, they suit our purposes. We're going to have a look after this little E50 game, just an icebreaker. I needed something to talk over the top of, and it was on the iPad. We're going to have a look at an E75 on Falls. Very, very interesting map, this. Always a bit controversial, but what I like to do on it is push to the cap. Now, there's a good spot here for side scraping in an E75, and this is really basic side scraping 101. Now, I've got to include a little bit of it, so here you go. Very straightforward. There's an E75 down there. I've put my tank flush with that wall. There you go. So he can't really hit me. He just takes a shot. He's going to either get track or part of my tank. Now, there's another tank down there as well, and it doesn't pop up as a spot for me. So at one point I get hit in the tracks when I think he's fired, and it's actually a panther behind him or something. So there you go. Taking shots, moving in and out. Moving in and out is a good thing to do. It gives the opponent the idea that they may actually get a shot in, whereas you're not really risking a lot. Occasionally you'll flash a bit of a hit zone that's available, but for the most part you're just really sucking shots out of them. You can see we take one on the tracks there because we're angled correctly, and he doesn't really have a lot to shoot at that range anyway. Here we go, moving inwards and outwards. We're not taking damage. He's taking damage. The capture is reset, great, but we're still putting pressure on the enemy being where we are. This is something that can be really effective in cap zones. If you can get into a circle, find a rock, like on mines. There's also some great rocks on Black Goldville, all around there. You can get a tank like an E100 or an E75, and you can side scrape in a cap zone and put heaps of pressure on the enemy. Now, side scraping is a great tool if you want to succeed in this game, but it's not the only tool. And for me, it's very straightforward. There you go. That's how you side scrape. You move in and out. You give them no angle. You use the flat, strong sides of your armour that can ricochet and absorb shots, and you let your tracks eat shots, and you make a living out of that. Now, what I'd like to look at next is juking. Juking is the act of moving the front of your tank around. Generally, it's the front of your tank, so that the enemy will go from an open shot into an unangled area to a shot into your tracks or a shot into a heavily angled area, and it will force them to bounce. Now, I'm going to have a look at something different here. I'm going to put an inset pick in the top left-hand corner of the screen, which you'll see pop up in a tick, and it's going to be the E100 seen from the E75's perspective using its gun. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm giving the E100 my flank so that he points his gun there, and then I adjust so that he can then see only an open shot on my lower glacis, and you'll see it in the top left-hand corner there. That's what it looks like, that green part. So when his gun moves to my lower glacis, you'll see it moving there. We move, boom. The angle's changed, it's an auto bounce. That's it in a nutshell. You need to do that a lot in this game, and it doesn't always work. But it's when you're running through a dogfight and there's you versus another tank, this is something else that you have to have in your arsenal. Especially as a medium driver, you can see really good medium drivers. They juke all the time and they take shots on their tracks and frustrate people. E100s are brilliant at it. Now, here we are again. Now, this is a bit more about angling in soft cover and angling with multiple targets. Now, I push again. It's like I always push here. It's just the way I play the game. I believe if you're a big, heavy tank, you should be doing it too. Now, you'll see on the ground in front of me, there's some soft cover. That will cover my lower glacis if I need it in a pinch. There's targets all ahead of me. There's also a target on my left. Now, you'll see there, if I had to run into that brick wall, it would have been a terrible thing to do. I angle my tank out to the T54 on my right. At the same time, I use that stack of bricks on my left and the angle of the front glacis on my tank to create an auto bounce zone. So anyone that's shooting at me from the left right now is going to auto bounce. Anyone that's shooting at me, that T54, he probably hasn't got gold ammo loaded to go into battle. He's panicked, he hasn't had time to change into it, and he's just reversing because he doesn't get a shot. So I angle back, and you can see there, we're still safely behind that brick. Now, they won't shoot that because most players don't want to shoot an object like that because it takes their shot away, then they've got to reload and pull back. It's just one of these things. Some smart players with high rate of fire guns will do it all the time, but you can see, they look at the angle on that, hiding behind that tiny little brickwork. They could have shot that, any one of those guys, and then they would have had a clear shot into my flank, but they didn't. And I'm protected on both sides by those bricks. Now, there's plenty there, so I'm going to move forward. He doesn't have a shot because of our angle. Again, we're constantly angling. That IS-3, we're actually side scraping off that building ahead of us. The IS-3's there. We're angling again, not giving that an angle at all to that IS. And eventually we're going to get flanked on the right here, and we're going to hit, but what can you do? It all goes to hell in a handbasket. I think we won anyway, who cares? The next one is hiding your lower glacis. Now, the M103 we're facing isn't doing a bad job of that at all. He's hidden the weak spots of his tank for the most part, but I'm going to show you a side-by-side. This is what he can see. He can see all the red and that little bit of yellow around my gun mantle, but that green, that's my lower glacis, is at the exact same height as the steps on temple. I'm moving back and in, giving him a little flash of the good stuff so he sticks around, and then I push back up hard against the temple steps and he auto bounces on my upper glacis. He starts trying to go for the hatch, which is a very hard target on a tank that's moving and bustling around. You can see here, he knows I'm going to have a crack at his commander's hatch, which is a lot easier as a target. So he's basically got nothing but hard shots to take. Now, this is not rocket science, but I see so many people here push forward when there's no joy in it. or angle their tank incorrectly and give him a side shot. There's no reason for it. Like, do the simple stuff. You'll maximise the amount of time you stay alive and stay in front of the enemy. Hide your lower glacis at all times. It's not some major last stand side scraping and angling and reverse angling and juking. It's just all added together where you abuse terrain and objects, and it gives you a much better opportunity to win the game. Now next up, we're going to have a look at Winter Malinovka, and that little section at the top there presents an interesting opportunity to really abuse terrain. A lot of people will move forward here, but they can't depress the gun far enough to fire, so they then go over the top, get filled full of lead, no good. If you've got a little slope ahead of you and there's a rising slope behind it, you simply move backwards. That creates it's reversing into a hull down position, and you can see we reverse up, take a shot, reverse back down. These guys down here, they can't do that. They're exposed the entire time. We're winning with the terrain. Now all this is about is staying alive while we're letting our team flank around and do the right thing for us. So we're basically just fighting a holding pattern here with 5 tanks in front of us, while the rest of the team's going to chew up their tail, come up and save the day. Now, I also want to talk about, you can see, look at the bouncers. There's bouncers bloody everywhere. I mean, we're going to get hit. You're never going to pick right every time. But what you can do is maximise your chances of being alive at the end of the game. And that's all that counts. It doesn't matter if it's alive with the full deck of hit points or alive with 80 hit points. You want to be the last man standing. Now, priority angling, what I'm talking about here is you aim your tank, or you angle your tank towards the most deadly opponent. In this case, it's going to be the IS-3. I angle to the IS-3. Now, he's the guy who hits me on the tracks, which is important because he's looking at about a 400 alpha if he gets through. So he's the guy I'm really worried about. I don't think the Conqueror's got the top tier gun. So it's the IS-3 for me that's the big worry. Now, once you get a bounce or you take a hit from that IS-3, you then start angling towards your next target, in this case the Conqueror, then back to the Tiger P, then I angle my body back to the Conqueror, take one from him, and then angle to the E50. Don't give him a shot. He charges to try to get the side, we get the kill, angle back to the Conqueror. There it is, guys. It's simple. It's all about minimising risk, maximising game, and playing the numbers. Any questions, shoot me a line. I'm always on the Asian forums under the English-speaking game discussion section. Leave a comment in the section below or shoot me an email. Why not say g'day in game? I'm Bushka on Blitz. Have a great night.